Okay, I decided to make a video of this split window coupe. It's a factory red car, base motor, 250 horsepower. The original monthly 4-speed, everything's numbers matching. It's been repainted in 2016, single stage. Everything on this car has been gone over. Everything works like it should. You can see the door gaps. The other side's the same. These doors close with 2 fingers. Okay, both sides. Same with the windows. They wind up and down with 2 fingers. You won't see many that good nice. Okay. The motor's ice cold, been sitting for about 3 days. Let's see how it starts. Okay. Give it a couple kicks with the accelerator. And there you go. Comes right up. We're in Central Florida, so the fast idle isn't that fast. The choke comes off real quick. Clock works. You don't hear any strange noises or smoke. You can take this car to the red line with no issues. The hood is off because I just rebuilt the headlight motors. The spare tire tub is off because I just reworked the suspension, everything. Trailing arms, snubber bushings, sombreros, half shafts, new spindles. Those are brand new spindles on both sides. All the work on that was done by Van Steel. It hasn't had the rear end aligned yet, but I've driven it and everything cracks just fine. 250 horsepower base motor. Idles at 500 RPM. I keep it up at just a tad higher, so when the air conditioning compressor kicks in, it doesn't stall out. So a good idle for this is about 600. Okay. The headlight motor's just rebuilt. Work like a dream. It's hard to see from here. They're perfectly synchronized. It shifts, corners, steers, brakes just like it should. The brakes have been completely gone over. You can see it's got new parking brake cables. Everything's been done on this car. It's a turnkey, no excuses car. Okay, this is a 1963 Corvette split window. As you can see, the bumpers are original and perfectly straight. They have the waves in them just like they came from GM. It has an original grille. It has an original surround molding. The gaps are superb. It has the original late 1963 fiberglass headlight buckets. It has an original header bar. That's one way you tell if a car has been wrecked. The reproduction bars have holes that go through here to access the nuts on the back of the emblem. And if they're sharp edged to reproduction, they've been drilled. If it's a smooth lip, they've been stamped. It's original. This car has an original one. The original no support rods are in place. It's an original radiator core support. It's an original radiator shroud for 63 1 year only. It's a replacement DeWitt's correct radiator, very expensive, and it'll pass NCRS judging. It has the original thick front bumper brackets, 1 year only. All later mid-years had thinner brackets. Has the original horns. It does have vintage air at it, that's why the condenser's up here. Original voltage regulator, converted to solid state, passed NCRS judging, you can't even tell. Horn relay's been reconditioned. This car's got everything in front just the way it should be. Well, I've walked through all the other aspects of the split window, so we'll go ahead and do the front. Everything on here is original. It's an original grille. It's been tweaked to fit a little better than it did originally. It's original bumpers, re-chromed, 1963 bumpers. You can see again the fit on the headlight buckets and how the front end looks. Go under here. This has the correctly put together bumpers with the little tubes in the channel here, which many people forget, and then they wind up crushing this channel and nothing fits right. This has all of that. It also has the extra thick bumper braces. In '63 they were 3/8 inch, and later mid-years are 1/4 inch. It also has the '63 control arms with the reinforcements on them. Some of the later cars actually had mixed '63 and '64 with the reinforcements on them. Okay, this has new bushings in the sway bar. You see as we go down, it's got the power steering damper. Everything up here is in good shape. It's also got an original oil filter canister, not a thin-walled one like the reproductions. This third parking brake cable has been replaced, and that is one pain in the neck, I mean to tell you, because the '63 parking brake is unique. That is a '63 starter. I have the original solenoid. That's a rebuilt aftermarket solenoid. I just haven't rebuilt it yet. This is one of the first Muncies to go in a Corvette. It's a May car, so it's got the Muncie 4-speed, just the wide ratio. All the numbers match. The body, the tail shaft, the side cover is an improved side cover. Okay. It's got actually bronze bushings here. The original side cover's in storage. It can come with the car. If you walk through here, you see everything's in good shape. You can see the job number, 334, that also matches it on the doors. In the factory, they numbered up to 500 as the cars ran through the production assembly line. And this is car number 334 for the day it was assembled. Everything under here is in first class shape. That's some of the blackout you see there. It's all the correct gray fiberglass under here. As we walk back here, more gray fiberglass, all in pristine shape. Of course, again, parking brake cables have been replaced. As we get back here, you'll see the '63 and '64 unique inner body mounts. These have been replaced. And that's a pain in the neck because you got to lift the body a little bit to do it. They're brand new. As we walk further back, more gray fiberglass, just like it should be. The earlier cars had blonde fiberglass. The later cars had gray fiberglass. The spare tire tub here is a '63 only spare tire tub. Correct spare tire tub lock. And matching key. One key opens everything on these '63s. And that is how a spare tire tub for '63 should look. The bare fiberglass, not painted. And so that's a complete walkthrough. Okay, I did not try to over-restore this car. It's got the overspray underneath. It's got a lot of its originality still intact. That's the new parking brake cables. These are actually new spindles as part of the trailing arm rebuild. No crappy reproduction parts were used. These guys are actually NOS GM. They're top and bottom. The strut rod bushings are NOS GM. Okay, the sombrero bushings have been replaced. You can't find those NOS. Okay, the snubber bushing up here has been done. That can be a problem on a lot of cars. New shock absorbers. This car has all the '63 features. That includes these rubber cushions up here, '63 only. A lot of people don't put them back when they're restored. Dr. Rebuild has the nicest ones. These are actually plates over the strut rod that only 63 has. Supposedly prevent heat from here from melting the bushing. Later they found out you didn't need it. It also has the 1 year only exhaust heat shields here, where they thought the heat from the exhaust mufflers might affect the fiberglass, and it was found out not to be the case. So there's no rust up under here. That's an auxiliary fuel pump. You don't have to use it. But if you suffer from percolation, this car does not. You can turn it on, or if it's been sitting for a month or 3 months, you can turn it on. There's a hidden switch under the dash. Everything else is original. We had the trailing arms completely rebuilt by Van Steel front bushings. The bearings are set up 0.001 on this side, 0.002 on this side. Okay. The strut rods are the original ones. I didn't go for reproductions. The half shafts are perfectly fine. They've got zircless fittings in them. You won't be greasing these. Okay, and the rear end, the side stub yokes, measures 0.027 inches play on this end, 0.025 over on this end, which is well within specs. You really don't have to start thinking about replacing them until they're triple that. So this car will go many, many more miles. A little bit about the interior of this particular 63 split window. It is a factory red interior, factory red exterior car. The door panels are Alnock, and all the hardware on them is original. The cranks, the reflectors, and the armrest. It has original day-coated side glass windows, original vent windows, and original weather stripping, original style weather stripping. And both doors are like that. It has a Corvette America dash pad that has the closest grain to original, and this dash pad is like new. Okay, it has the 1 year only 1963 headliner. This is not vinyl over fabric. This is a hardboard headliner with a pebbly texture to it. It also has the original, they call them conical gauges from 1963. Everything you see here is original. It's got the 095 headlight switch for 63 only, which I rebuilt. Original wiper switch, original Tasco lighter, original ignition switch. Now it does have LED instrument bulbs, and they're not harsh ones. There's the warm white, and it's just a nice glow at night. You can turn them up brighter than stock, and you can actually see them really well. The original 1963 only parking brake. Okay, it also has correct pedals. It has the 1963 clock. This clock has one of the few remaining OEM Borg movements in it, so it ticks and clicks and whirs just like it should and operates just like original. To save the life of it, as recommended by Clockworks that restores them, I put a switch in the glove box right here, so you can only need to turn it on when you're cruising or if you want to use it while driving, and not all the time. Okay, word about the radio. The radio is the original housing. This is the first AM/FM radio available in Corvettes. This particular radio has solid state internals in it, past judging. It operates in an indistinguishable manner from an original radio. It has a Hearst competition shifter. This shifter has a fake lockout, and it passed regional judging. It's much snappier than the original shifter. A word on this console. This is the rare 1963 console, shifter console. These are really fragile aluminum, and there's one guy in the world that restores these, Andy Canizo out of New Jersey. He actually takes the bright dip anodizing off, fixes any scratches or dings or defects, fixes the ashtray if needed, then brushes them and gets the correct grooving and re-dips them and anodizes them. And so these are perfect when he's done with them. A thing of beauty. Okay, the steering wheel is reproduction, as are these seat belts. I have originals, they need restored. I'd rather put the wear and tear on these reproductions. The glove box door is an original 63 glove box door. Easy way to tell, the emblem's not raised. Okay, it's actually embedded in the plastic. This is the late, correct 1963 lock. Okay, and a late 63 door should have unpainted fiberglass in the back, as you see here. Okay, it's an NOS glove box light switch. Not one of them cheap reproduction ones that fall apart on you. Okay, it has original 1963 seats. By the way, these are completely identical, passenger and driver side. If you feel like you're getting too much wear on the driver's side, you don't carry a passenger, you can actually swap them and you'll never know the difference. Correct seats have a peak to them, as you see here. You'll see a lot of restorations by amateurs that put too thick a foam in here and they're squared off at the top. These are not. Okay, the carpet, to my knowledge, is original. It's in very good shape. Now, a word about the rear window trim. This is the painted interior trim. Everybody talks about the stainless trim, how hard it is to get and how rare. Try to find this stuff. This is all correct in here. The rear windows are date coated correct, original windows. They have a light ceramic tint on them. It really cuts down on the UV and the heat and saves this original carpet. Under here, I'm not going to move all this stuff. It's an original jack board with the decals on it, an original 1963 jack handle and retainer spring. This car is put together correctly. It even has the clips, the clips that go here to hold this stuff together. A lot of times your stores will forget these clips to keep this up against this piece here, this halo. It also has another thing a lot of people forget is the pinch welds on the seat brackets. That would be right here. It's supposed to have 4 of them, short black pieces that are actually like this trim, but they're black. And this has all that. It's all correctly done. I've been asked by some friends to tell them a few things they could look for when looking at mid-year, specifically the 63 split window coupes. So we'll go through that using my car as an example. The things that I look for. First, I look to make sure that the bumpers are straight. People will tell you can't get them straight. It's a lot of effort. You can get them pretty darn straight. And you can see these original bumpers have the original waves in them and the typical chrome plating. The front of the car should be straight along this ridge. These headlight buckets should follow this ridge just like this. You should have nice gaps on each side. These corners should be radiused, not squared off. That's a sign of body damage, where they can start to crack. In addition, they should be flush here. A car with body damage, a lot of times it won't be flush here, or it won't be straight here. They will do a compromise to try to get one or the other to look nice. And that's a giveaway there's been body damage. These are 63 fiberglass headlights, 1 year only. They were metal after this. And the earlier ones had a different screw arrangement to hold the bezels on than this one does. This is a late car. Down here, you can see these tabs that hold the grill in place. A lot of times they're broken off. That can be a sign of body damage. Sometimes it just happens. They're easy enough to fix. Again, we come around the side. The bumper should be pretty straight in this dimension as well, not tilt up or down excessively. Okay, the nose has a droop in it. This is just the way it is. This ridge line straightens out as you go further back, but it should have a nose droop effect right there. The hubcaps, 17-piece hubcaps. Earlier hubcaps were frosted. These are not. This is a May car. They had 17 pieces. In '64, they decided they were too expensive to make. These are 1 year only. You can get the spinner and the spokes reproduction. You cannot get the platters reproduction. You have to be real careful taking these on and off. A lot of these cars were repaired from front end damage with over the wheel arch repairs. That's bad news because usually it prints through after a few years when the paint starts to shrink. You should have a bonding seam here, and you should not have them cut up to here. To get bigger tires on, sometimes back in the day, they would cut right up to this line. It's pretty subtle, you can miss it. And they do the same thing with the rear wheel arch. Okay, as you come down here, you see the emblem. This one's correct. For some reason, some people want to drop them way down here. That's a sign it's had body damage. As you come up here, the hood gap should be nice and straight. Okay. These are the famous cookie sheets. These are originals. The 63 hood has a double dip. There's a depression here. There's another depression where these sit down in to get them flush. These are attached on the back by speed nuts. One speed nut is missing here from the factory because it would hit the top of the radiator. That's by design. If you see that missing, it's not because somebody messed up. And you can see the gaps on this hood. We'll talk more about that when I open it. The wipers are shiny. Later, because of glare problems, I forget which year, the mid-years, they dulled them down. The windshield washer nozzles are adjustable. You can put a paper clip in the little hole, adjust them to get the right spray pattern up here. Okay. This is the sign of a 63 door. This is a difficult piece to find, expensive. Only 63 has this. 63 also has raised pads under the door handles. There's no gasket under this lock. Vendors sell them. I don't know why. There are gaskets under here. Okay. You see how the gaps are there. All the way up. The windshield, installing that is an art, not a science. There are different size clips that go in different locations. Like to do this transition and get this to lay down flat, you have to have the right clip in the right spot. And a lot of times you'll see this has a big gap here where somebody got it wrong. This actually is pretty darn nice. I'm happy with it. Okay, this is a early replacement windshield. It's got an LOS symbol, but it's not the original windshield. This is the original vent window. This is the original side glass. This is an original mirror, date coded. You can tell reproduction because usually they have a gap in the ring around here that secures the glass in place. This is a killer right here because they don't reproduce these channels anymore for 63. Never did, I don't think. So people will take 64 channels and try to cobble them together to make them work. This is original right here. Now the roof dimensions were wrong in the mid-years, so the mold was created wrong. There's a problem with these cars getting this transition right. And to get it laid flat like this is actually really well done. And not have this corner pop up. The other side's the same way. In fact, it was so bad on the factory line, they had a beefy guy on the end that would put his knee up here and do what they call reefing the doors and pulling them back. And you can see a kink in some cars where that was actually done to get them to fit like that. By the way, that's how those should close. Just like that. If you pick the door up and down and it wobbles, okay, it's a sign of bad hinge pins, worn bushings, or the rivets in the door shot. These doors have been taken off and completely redone. Other thing you want to look for right here is any bubbles or rust stains in this area. Typically, over the years, this weather strip dries out, it gets cracked, it starts to leak. The rain transitions in here and starts to rot this area. You see that run away. Any bubbling or rust stains. There's no minor bird cage damage. It's like being a little bit pregnant. It's all a big deal. Okay, so we'll close this. 2 fingers. That's how it should close. Oh, let's try that again. There you go. The rocker panel. If a car's had side pipes on it, all these little drop down welded on tabs will be missing. There's 6 or 7 of them. You want to look for that. A lot of times people will take the side pipes off and just put a couple of these tabs down here. You can see the screws for each tab. You want to make sure they're all there or it's a problem. As you come back, this ridge line should be straight. Okay, up to where it droops down the nose. Again, you got to watch out that these fenders had a mild flare job. You should have this drop down below the ridge line. As you come around here, the bumper should be straight. Okay, just like on the front. Now these tailpipes should come out 5.5 inches, be magnetic, be thin, have a seam on the bottom, and no part numbers on them. That's how you can tell you got the right ones. The rear valance on these cars fit terribly on 63. They got better later on. partly because up here you've got it overlapping the fiberglass. As it comes down here, it's a butt joint. And so this is pretty typical. Actually, it's pretty nice. As you come along the back, you got to watch. I've seen cars repaired badly and they actually droop down here where they got hit in the left quarter. You want to stand back and make sure this line across here is good. Also, people would back into things and this peak right here would get nailed. So you want to make sure it's good. That was a pretty typical thing when people would back up. You got the split window, you can't hardly see, and so you try to back up. And no backup cameras back in the day, and people would hit this very tip. Now, the famous split. They were cut out. To some extent, nobody knows how many were done to make them look like a 64 and later car. That's the antenna. It should not collapse completely. That's an original one. That's how it should look. Now this trim is now reproduced by Keen Corvettes, which is good because it's really hard to find good shape stainless. It's also hard to get reproduction rubber that will lay flat like you see here. Corvette rubber has the best stuff, and you can get a nice fit. These are date coated glass, by the way, for this car. Date coated side glass. The mirrors, the early 63 mirrors were different. They were a little harder to see, so they changed them mid-year, like I was talking about, so this one looks different. The vent window regulators, which you can't see for 63 or 63 only. They have a few different rings or something on them, I'm not exactly sure. So anyway, let's pop the hood. Now, early hoods were slick on these sides underneath. Had nothing there. Okay, this whole business here was slick. Then they decided they need hood wedges to keep the hood from moving around. There were nylon wedges put in there that mated with channels down here. There were 2 of them, then 4 of them. Then they decided they didn't need them, but they already had the hoods drilled, the provisions for them. So the later cars had plugged and filled spots for those hood wedges. Okay, this rubber, I think this is correct for the later cars. The earlier cars that came down here, I think it looked a little weird. Another way you can tell a replacement front end is if you got a thick ridge down here, this little lip. You should not have a thick one. It should look like this. You should also have that little dimple at the 13th cowl vent. That was a defect in the mold, although original cars have had them sanded out by overzealous body men. So that happens. As I was telling you, right here you would expect to see another speed nut for the cookie sheet on the front. It's not there because if it was, it would hit this raised part here if the hood was closed. So let's talk about the headlights. You'll see how they operate. I've showed this before. That's pretty darn good. These have just been rebuilt. Now, what I wanted to talk about was, everybody talks about the headlight bucket gaps when they're closed. The true test of a well done or original body is if the gaps are even when they're open like this. That's what you want to see. Because getting this rotational geometry right between these two ends on a car that's been damaged is a real problem. You got to work at it. And you can see how these are. Now, we'll raise the hood back up. A sign of a front end repair, extensive front end repair, are the 2 holes to access the speed nuts behind this emblem on the header bar, which extends all the way across here for support. If they have sharp edges on them, it's a reproduction. If they have a lip on them, they're originals. If it's a reproduction, it's probably because it's been hit in the front. Now there's a clever guy that has a tool that takes the reproductions and you pound it into those holes and it puts a lip on them. Very clever, I thought. So you can't always depend on that. And the other thing you want to look for, because most of these cars, if they get hit in the front, is that they are not crooked. You want everything to be straight, because sometimes they have a twist in the front where somebody glued things together improperly.